I know it's a little bit difficult to talk of investments now that we are in a survival kind of mode. What is your assessment of the foreign investment landscape of the country as of today?
The country has faced extremely difficult situation over the last 2 weeks. Natural disasters are a reality, and Sri Lanka has gone through many of these over the last decade or so, and very important now to enable us to come out of this situation, to have adequate investment, our capital to transform, rebuild the nation. So we've seen a lot of investor confidence pick up, a lot of inquiries coming in. We see potential for this to flow through and continue through. But we are confident that the investment sentiment will continue going into next year.
Which categories or segments are looking most prospective?
So you have investment opportunities across energy, infrastructure, and you have approximately 15 special economic zones established across the breadth and length of this country. We have actually executed leases on 6 plots of land. The latest was executed on the 21st of last month for a residential parcel, thereby again stimulating and possibly attracting or giving the confidence to investors who are on the sidelines to actually start taking the next steps in terms of executing their projects.
Foreign investments are crucial to Sri Lanka, now more than ever. We spoke about all of this and more with Revan Wickramasuriya. Stay tuned.
For 30 years, LMD has been the voice of business in Sri Lanka, capturing the pulse of the nation's corporate landscape through its iconic covers. Each cover tells a story, from the first edition in 1994 to the present day, narrating key moments, leaders and trends that have shaped Sri Lanka's business ecosystem. Over the years, LMD covers have featured thought leaders, business pioneers and game-changing innovations, reflecting the evolution of industries and the economy. As we celebrate 30 years, these covers represent more than just publications. They are a testament to LMD's legacy of excellence in business journalism and its unwavering commitment to being Sri Lanka's leading voice of business. LMD, Sri Lanka's voice of business, a legacy of 30 years.
Hello and welcome to LMDtv. The topic of conversation today is FDI prospects, and I'm here with the Director General of the Colombo Port City Economic Commission, Revan Wickramasuriya. Welcome to our show.
Good afternoon, Ruwandi. Thank you very much for this invitation.
Lovely to have you, Revan. I know it's a little bit difficult to talk of investments now that we are in a survival kind of mode, but I think it's more important than ever that we look at attracting more investment to the country. So from where you stand, what is your assessment of the foreign investment landscape of the country as of today?
No, I think you're absolutely correct. Ruwandi, the country has faced extremely difficult situation over the last 2 weeks. Natural disasters are a reality.
Yes.
And Sri Lanka has gone through many of these over the last decade or so. And as you mentioned, it is very important now to enable us to come out of this situation, to have adequate investment, our capital to transform, rebuild the nation. The positive is that over the last 12 months since this government came into power, we've seen significant stability in the economic framework and the policy decisions. And we've seen that dovetail into investment interest into the port city specifically. So we've seen a lot of investor confidence pick up, a lot of inquiries coming in, and we see potential for this to flow through and continue through. What has happened over the last few weeks, I think, is going to sort of put things on hold for a moment for people to take stock of what is happening, and rightly so, because we need to ensure the lives, the losses that have been occurred by various people are the focal point and they're addressed accordingly. But we are confident that the investment sentiment will continue going into next year.
Lovely. That's always a very good hope for us to hang on to. And looking at investors, which categories or segments are looking most prospective?
If you look at the investment platform in Sri Lanka, so you have investment opportunities across energy, infrastructure, etc. And you have approximately 15 special economic zones established across the breadth and length of this country, having successfully implemented investment policies for over 45 years.
Yeah.
When we look at the Colombo port city, the mandate as per the Act is to create a special economic zone that focuses on the service sector,
Yes.
from logistics, global business centers, global trading, head offices or regional head offices, and then, of course, areas such as tourism and hospitality is the focus. At its current phase, the 269 hectares of land that have been reclaimed,
Yeah.
the primary objective is to attract developers to come in and lease out the plots of land and carry out the vertical construction.
Yes.
We have seen, we have actually executed leases on 6 plots of land. The latest was executed on the 21st of last month for a residential parcel.
Right. Yes.
So going into Q1, we are confident that the marina development, the residential parcel, and a few commercial parcels would start their construction activity, thereby again stimulating and possibly attracting or giving the confidence to investors who are on the sidelines to actually start taking the next steps in terms of executing their projects.
And in terms of taking the next steps, how should Sri Lanka ensure, like you said, we might be keeping some things on hold for now, but during this time, how can Sri Lanka strengthen investor confidence?
I think when you look at investor confidence, one needs to look at what investors need, whether it's Sri Lankan investing in Sri Lanka to expand their businesses or foreigners coming in and attracting capital to invest and grow their businesses in Sri Lanka. So you have what I would say factors of production. You have land, labor, capital, and entrepreneurship. What Sri Lanka has going for itself is we have land and we have labor. The capital and the business acumen or the entrepreneurship to a great extent rests with the private sector.
Yes.
And also business entrepreneurs overseas. The government needs to create the framework that their investors have access to land and have access to labor. Coming to the port city, what we've done is we've created that access to land, 269 hectares of land, clear title, no issues in terms of title issues. It's all clear, comes through a grant granted by the president under the state land ordinance in August 2021.
Yeah.
That issue has been addressed. So what do we need to do to attract capital to come in and start developing, leasing those plots of land and developing, right? What we realize is the developer needs to see an end user demand.
Yes.
End user demand from the perspective of a residential parcel, a retail development, or a commercial development. We need to see the government taking steps, policy directions to actually give the necessary impetus or the confidence for the investors to bring in their money and to do the development, knowing very well that the end user demand would ultimately be there.
Yeah. And talking about, like you've mentioned, we need to know what investors want, but also in terms of being attractive to them, especially since we are in a region that is also increasing its competitiveness. How can Sri Lanka ensure that we are regionally very competitive in terms of attracting investors?
I think I'm sure you've traveled around the region, right? And I'm sure you've gone to India, Bangladesh, Pakistan, Maldives. But when you look at all these countries in, I would take the Asian subcontinent, and you go into those capital cities and then you come back to Sri Lanka, right? One could, with a degree of confidence, say that Colombo by far ranks up there in terms of livability, in terms of congestion, in terms of pollution.
History.
And at the end of the day, we are in an island nation which has always been a strategic location for anyone that wants to come in and cater to the Asian subcontinent to start with. Then when we start looking at further afield, whether it's Singapore or the Middle East, it's clear that we have potentially has a significant cost advantage. That alone, I believe, is extremely adequate to attract businesses that want to be based here, to attract people that want to live here, and then cater to the Asian subcontinent. And maybe if you're looking at further East Asia,
Yeah.
or even going into the Middle East and certain parts of Africa.
So we do have advantages that we can, harvest from.
Absolutely. There is no doubt on the fact that we have significant advantages.
It's time now to take a very short break, but we're soon back to talk more about investments.
Display your brand message on digital screens at prime locations. The largest digital advertising network in Sri Lanka. Emerging Media.
Welcome back to the show. We're in conversation with the Director General of the Colombo Port City Economic Commission, Revan Wickramasuriya. Revan, another area that investors would like to see is like an enabling regulatory framework. What is your assessment of how the regulatory framework is governing investments?
When you look at the regulatory framework, I think what do investors primarily look at? And again, from the feedback or the feedback and the views we've received from businesses that have been looking at setting up themselves in the Colombo port city or developments. I think especially when capital comes from overseas, they need to have confidence that the capital that comes in from overseas, or once somebody starts doing a business, the income they generate from overseas needs to be, shouldn't be restricted from repatriation or any mandatory conversions.
Right.
When people come in and set up a business and they bring in their foreign workers to live and work here, they've raised concerns around the complexities on labor laws, right? And how does it apply to a worker who's coming in here for a 2-year period or a 3-year period or a 5-year period? So these are some of the concerns that have been raised from investors in terms of understanding and receiving more clarity
Right.
in certain areas that are key requirements from starting the business.
Of course.
Yeah.
And how easy or difficult will it be to ensure that that side of the story is also, addressed, especially with more investments coming in?
So I think to a great extent, at least for the Colombo Port City, the central bank has been extremely supportive and given a lot of guidance. They have created a special account called the Colombo Port City Investee account for businesses that are licensed through the port city. There are frameworks where exemptions can be granted against certain laws and regulations from a labor law perspective. And there continues to be further discussions with the ministry and the various stakeholders to see how we can sort of build a robust framework around this to create that level of confidence, or I would say enhance the confidence with the businesses that are looking at the port city, and then also the people who are even considering the port city as a first place for them to make their home.
Yes.
Right, because as I said, about 50% of the development that is expected to take place is for residential accommodation or apartments and houses or villas. Then there is about another 20-25% of the accommodation or the built up floor area for retail space.
Exactly. Yes. So it's going to be more or less all hands on deck, all stakeholders involved kind of process. Revan, it's been such an interesting discussion, but sadly at the last question, when we take 2026, what would you say would be the most important next steps that should be taken in terms of ensuring that the flow of investments and the prospects remain?
I think the government has done exceptionally well to stabilize our economy, right? Where we were 24 months ago to where we are now, we've seen improvements in our credit rating, and we continue to see significant support from the DFIs and the multilaterals. Clearly, from the response we've had from a number of nations even over the last 2 weeks, right, is amazing. From the Americas to Australia to the Middle East to, and of course, India.
Pakistan, yeah.
India and Pakistan are our closest neighbors. So there is clear evidence that these countries are there to help. We need to make sure, the government needs to make sure that the stability they've created can be taken through or maintained over the next 4 years.
Yeah.
We need to see regulations coming in that create the necessary flexibility or the necessary framework for businesses to operate, for people to come in and live here, or buy the apartments, invest in the apartments, and live in the port city. We need to ensure that the regulations that are even there are administered, because you get a lot of regulations sometimes that are not even applied or administered
Right.
over the next 2 years or even going into 2026. I think that's absolutely critical to maintain that momentum. Just speaking of the port city alone, we had in September, we had the Business of Strategic Importance regulations that were gazetted. That's a framework that grants fiscal incentives. In October, we had the government confirm that the utilities have been connected to the plot. That's your water, electricity, and your sewerage. In November, we had tabled in Parliament a bill that is sort of talking about making amendments to the Colombo Port City Economic Commission Act. And as I mentioned earlier, we signed a lease agreement for a parcel of land also at the end of November. So clearly, very good things or positive steps are being taken. And it's important that these steps continue to be taken going into next year, notwithstanding the difficult situation we are in. But I believe the government and the necessary stakeholders are focused on continuing to take the next steps into 2026. I'd like to add that, yes, we are not expecting large steps. Let's take baby steps, small steps. And that is what we are going to ensure there will be stable policies and a stable framework for investors to come in and continue to invest and grow this economy.
Continue the momentum.
Absolutely critical.
Thank you, Revan. Thank you very much. We've been in conversation with the Director General of the Colombo Port City Economic Commission, Revan Wickramasuriya. Thank you for all your insights.
Thank you, Ruwandi. It was a pleasure to be here.
And thank you to all our viewers for joining us. Until next time, take care.
Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow us on Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, and X. Thank you for watching and stay safe.